recording it. Thank you again for being here. My name is Kevin Sofa. I'm one of the co-founders of smartfirefighting.com. Really, one of the points of why we are hosting this is just to continue to keep momentum on all things smart firefighting technology. As we know, the ball keeps bouncing. We go to these events and they're amazing, but we wake up and things happen. And there's still events, there's still disasters, there's still opportunities for technology integration, collaboration. So we want to use this as an open forum to learn from each other, share best practices. So this is, again, meant to be kind of informal, popcorn style. I ask that no one speaks for longer than 3 minutes, any one given point. And I want this to be somewhat of like a organized pandemonium, where if someone's going, you'll feel free to physically or virtually raise your hand and chime in. And so this event today, we're talking about wildfires. We've heard about it in the news quite a bit throughout the past couple of years. It seems like, unfortunately, year after year, it just keeps getting worse. But as we know, wildfires are natural. A lot of times wildfires are actually helpful with regenerating aspects of ecosystems. But on the flip side, there's been a lot of challenges to where wildfires have become unnatural. And there's a lot of man-made causes of wildfires. And there's all these different aspects of why they're happening and why they're becoming more extreme, and ultimately the evolving threat for first responders. So today here in the wildfire technology chat, I encourage us to go from anything to talking about community risk reduction and how it can be proactive, to how we're looking at drones, to how we're exploring the usage of satellite data imagery. So we have a lot of different unique stakeholders here on the chat. So I'm first going to pass it over to retired Captain Kirk McKenzie, who's going to give us a little outline of kind of from State of the Union from his perspective. And then we're going to hear a little bit of update from Chile and Reno, kind of from some of their work. And then it's going to be very open to everyone sort of talking, listening, asking questions. So without further ado, Captain Kirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And have you got my slide there?
Yes.
Excellent. So thanks for hosting all of us today. And for the group, thanks for everybody who's attending. Many of you are really familiar with why we might want a 50-year strategy, for instance. I just pulled up the stats from June, and we are currently the second most fires at this time of the year in North America, at almost 4 million fires, twice the annual average for the last 20 years. And as we see in the news all across the Northern Hemisphere, we're having problems, and I expect the same in Australia in a few months. Some of the teams that are working on, I'm just going to sort of wet our whistle to watch for. Ensign just did a project called Beat the Blaze, which is the National Security Innovation Network. So DoD and some of the top teams are working on it. Really glad to see David Blankenship here. He'll tell us a little bit about a research application from Western Fire Chiefs. And those in background, thanks for muting your microphone. Chile and Reno are here to talk about some of the work that they've done, and how do we map our personnel and our citizens? What does evacuation modeling look like? One of the teams that I'm recently in touch with, really exciting stuff with geo-referenced pixel accuracy Live 360 video cameras. How are we going to take that smart command vehicle from the city, put it out into the wildland as we build out, say, fusion centers that give us intelligence and reconnaissance, so that we can run not only calls in the streets, but in the wildfire live in 3D. And so for those that aren't familiar, light detection and ranging or LiDAR laser scanners now contain thermal, and they could be mapping our people real time in 3D on the ground. And we have so much to learn and do as we adjust the user interface and the user experience as we come out with smart systems. Some of the big enterprise teams really inspired by what NVIDIA and Microsoft, Lockheed Martin, NASA, so many teams are doing. Take a look at Autonomy Institute, who is looking at the active digital twin platform citywide, which will become nationwide as highways transported us around the community. We're going to be live in 3D in the wildfire arena, certainly inside of 50 years is my expectation. What are drones doing? There's a great SAE report on how can we use autonomous airborne systems for our wildfire fight, Frontier Development Labs, working with some of the top shelf teams. Take a look at them. And again, just wetting the whistle for the roundtable. And the last little piece is from our friends here in Europe who said, hey, if we have a 3D model of a wildland fuel source and we turned it into a gaming engine platform, in this case, Unity, could be Unreal or Epic, how might we model that fire in augmented reality? And I say with the Internet of Things and early detection devices, inside of 50 years, we'll be able to do this, I believe, in real time. There's a recent report of a Japanese internet speed of 300 petaflops a second. Enough, and maybe Reno can speak to this, is that enough calculation speed at the edge for quantum computing to give us this sort of capability in real time? So just something to wet the whistle. Kevin, I'm going to give it back to you and say thanks for letting me get things started.
Thanks. And for those who joined shortly after, again, this is meant to be a kind of popcorn style roundtable. We're giving kind of early initial small presentations just to kind of set the stage. And then we want this to be organized pandemonium of people talking. And I encourage you to share links in the notes, share anything so we can document that and then send that to everyone else to continue to advance some of the best practices here. So without further ado, I want to introduce Shilei Zhao to the Zoom stage to kind of tell us a little bit, who are you and what is some of the work that you're working on that's relevant to the wildfire discussion?
Thank you so much, Kevin. So I'm Shilei Zhao. I'm an assistant professor in transportation engineering at the University of Florida. So I've been working on wildfire evacuation problems since I think around 3 years ago. So my work mainly focused on using different types of data and the data science techniques and AI technologies to help us better model and understand wildfire evacuation. So the most recent work of our team, including me, Reno, Erica Kuligowski, Daniel Nielsen, and Tom Kova. So we are a team of researchers from all different backgrounds, are working on how to use large-scale GPS data. So it's like the cell phone trajectory data generated by mobile apps. People are so using those kind of data, how can we better understand how people are making decisions during the wildfire evacuations? How effective are the crisis communication technologies effective to those folks, and how we can using those data to develop an AI model that can help us to achieve real-time decision making, to help us understand what's the traffic condition going to look like in the next day, and how we can plan ahead for those kind of situations in the future to achieve essentially real-time decision making, to facilitate emergency planning and management and operations in real time in the future. So that's a snapshot of our recent work, and thank you very much for including us.
Thank you, Shilei. It makes me want to go to David. Are you available to comment on Fire Map and where that might play together and what Western Fire Chiefs is doing? How, for me, it's the triangle of, we have dispatch between the caller saying we have an emergency and the first responder hearing that information from dispatch, but I want to connect the citizen to the first responder. And we look at evacuation modeling and the stuff Western's done. David, any chance you want to chat about that?
Sure, that's a big, easy softball. You know, it's nice to talk to this group, though, with the expertise represented here. I'm David Blankenship, and the Western Fire Chiefs has just released in the last 10 days a wildfire map, a public-facing map designed to really start showcasing and doing these kinds of things. There's lots of fire maps on the web. We don't think that there's anything new and unusual about that, but what we will do, starting with this MVP, is lead with a place that we think that we should be. The Western Fire Chiefs is an authoritative group when it comes to Western Fire Chiefs. And so we want, with that influence and conversation, to be able to bring real-time data to the public in a very mobile-first, consumable way. So you'll notice right away that the map is wildly fast. It's designed for consumers, and it's basically a stub out for, right now it has all the Irwin data flowing into it, and then it starts to put in pulse point data. And so most of you will be familiar with that, but that's essentially local dispatch data. So we have state, federal, and local sort of comprehensive data that's flowing into it. And that puts us in an interesting place to fool around, not just with weather data, but looking at evacuations, their progress in real time. The Western Chiefs is very interested in working with our partners, you know, at Google and Apple, Rapid SOS, a lot of places that have user data that is location data in evacuations to say, maybe we don't need every person's location. We're not proposing that, but we would operationally like to be able to say, we know that fire models are progressing. We know what fire is going to do more or less in the next 6 hours. And we want to understand evacuations in real time, at least to the extent where we could say, we know there were, you know, 100% of the people in here when we asked to leave based on their mobile locations and sharing through apps and these kind of platforms. Now we know we've drained that to 50% or 25%. So I think in summary, take a look at that map. We're always open to suggestions, but we will add quite a bit to it to include a volunteer sort of geographic contributor scanner kind of notifications, you know, to make sure we have the best intel. But it is to stimulate these conversations so that we can collaborate with this kind of group.
Thanks, David. One thing that I always hear about, and I remember, I think Mike Cox is on the call. I heard Mike Cox talking about it at Intershits. Just the idea and this balance between you've got all this state, federal, and local historical data, and then you have all this real-time data. And so it's just kind of it's fusing these two together to create the best operational picture to make decisions, you know, from an incident command standpoint, from an individual citizen standpoint. What are some examples of that sort of being done? And is that something, are we being inundated with data? Do we have enough data, or are we just like not using it as well as we could? It's sort of an open question here just now to the group, or, you know, if someone else wants to take it somewhere else, but you know, I'll throw that to anyone that wants to maybe take a stab at that.
Hey, Kevin, it's Anthony. Oh, go ahead.
Anthony, you want to go? And then Reno can go.
Yeah, sure. So, hey, everybody, my name is Anthony Schultz. I'm the Director of Wildfire here at Esri. To your question about combining some of the historic data with some of the real-time operational awareness, I would kind of point to the PODS concept. For those unfamiliar, PODS is a potential operational delineation. A quick Google search will give you the one pager from the Forest Service, but what they're trying to do is break up units on the forest, probably the old fire management units of old within WFDS and some other decision support systems, and trying to take a lot of that historic data and put them in geographic containers on a forest or other landscape that's going to help fire managers pre-identify areas where they're going to have the highest chance of success to suppress that fire. So it's based off like a 90 percentile weather index, ERC, and they're looking at areas on the forest where that's rock outcroppings, or whether that's rivers, streams, and then to the historic data, combining a lot of the old fire scars and trying to figure out ahead of the fire start where they're going to be able to successfully manage that fire, whether it's that big box strategy to your point earlier about ecological benefit, or from a straight suppression standpoint. So that's pretty interesting. And I know we've got a couple partners out there looking to bring a lot of that geospatial planning into a digital platform.
Thanks, Anthony. Reno, or anyone else want to kind of build on that?
Wanted to add, sorry for my voice, it's a bit early here. I wanted just to say that in our case, it looks like we have a full picture now that we are using GPS data, but I can tell you that the percentage of people that are actually on the ground that we can actually measure and observe is not that big yet. So there is still, from an evacuation point of view, a big gap from what we can try to figure it out. And most of the time, all the study that we do, all inference we do, even with GPS data, is with a really low percentage of the full population that is on the ground. And I don't have the answer what will be the way forward, because I understand that people don't want to be trapped, especially if you are not working, you are just living your own life and you get affected by a disaster. It's probably a big question that we need to ask of ourselves, if we need to start like enforcing people to share information when they are under threat, but then it comes and clash with the freedom of people as well. So it's also an ethical discussion about how much you can get out of people that are in the ground, not just working, but just living their life and get affected by this disaster. And Shilei, yeah.
Oh, I think Kirk is before me. Do you want to just jump in?
Well, to add to what Reno's saying, it's so critical that we have teams of PhDs working on digital ethics. As we had Leonardo da Vinci was threatening his life, evaluating cadavers all those years ago, yet I have a donor tag imprinted into my driver's license that if I should perish ahead of schedule, somebody could have whatever useful organs they might get out of my chronologically advanced self. And so we've moved a long way with bioethics. How do we translate digital ethics in the same way? Because we might share our location information to use a free navigation system or a rideshare component. But right now there's very few opportunities, but thank goodness to the teams who are here that we even have the opportunity. I just received a private chat from someone when we were talking about this opportunity. They said, it's about time. Shouldn't we have the option? So how do we opt in when we want to? Okay, Sheila, back to you.
Thank you all for the very exciting discussion. I think one thing I want to add is, so I think people are having those privacy concerns about their cell phone trajectory data. And I think, so for a lot of platforms that we are developing, we are not really show anyone's trajectory on the map. And I think for the from the decision makers or users point of view, they also don't want to know the exact trajectory of this specific individual. That might not be something that they need to make decisions. So there are different kinds of techniques that we can use to enhance the security of our visualization of our data. As on the one hand, we can preserve the privacy. On the other hand, we can also extract very useful information for decision making. For example, what's the traffic condition gonna look like in the next hour in this specific zone, and how congested of different egresses of this area, and how we can in real time, change the signal or adding the control flow, or how to develop those strategies to enhance evacuation process for the specific area. So for all those kind of things can be done by deal with all those data and building AI models in the background and do all those analysis in the cloud, in a black box. So so in this way, I think privacy can be preserved, but also like Kirk said, you can also volunteer to share your information to the people. That's also doable to help us better understand the process. I think another major challenge I want to bring up, I think especially related to what David just said, is how we can combine all different types of data into a same platform that are ready to be used by decision makers. Nowadays, all data are scattered around in all different kinds of places, right? If I'm a emergency manager, I need to look at 20 different websites, try to extract information in real time. It's very time consuming, and time is everything in emergencies. So this kind of one-stop shop platform is something that we should all contribute to build one that's publicly available, can be readily used in those areas. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sheila, and all important conversations as it pertains to the digital ethics conversation. And I want to continue to build on that, or even kind of popcorn into something else and hear from someone else we haven't heard from yet. I mean, 20 minutes in, and again, this is meant to just be open forum. But then I'm seeing some of our friends from FirstNet, Billy, Michael, and Gary. Thank you for being here, as well as everyone else. Anything else from the, let's say I'm looking at the FirstNet team, Billy, Michael, and Gary. Anything that you've heard so far that kind of strikes a chord that you want to build on, or something that you think we're not talking about enough?
So Kevin, it's Mike. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
No, it's great to see the people on the call today. A lot of familiar faces and good insight. When we look at it and the information we receive back as we talk to different levels of government and organizations that are trying to address this wildfire issue. And really our focus is to make sure they have access to data, right? The pipe, but how do we accelerate their use and modernize their operations while they do that? So we're in complete concurrence of what is being said. To date, we're just looking for ways that we can help accelerate that. But it is a challenge, and many times what we're hearing, just to emphasize and echo what you're talking about, is larger organizations and larger complex incidents have access and the ability to synthesize and consume these data points, which are really important, and consume different sensors. But at many of these fires, before they get to the large scale where they get those kinds of resources, we see many organizations are significantly challenged in their ability to understand where these data sets are, how to synthesize and get access so they can make good decisions early on before it escalates up to these type 1 and 2 events.
Mike, you bring up
Go ahead.
You bring up a great point. Billy Freeman here. The start of these incidents, those incidents don't start as what we call type 1s. They usually start as type 4s, 5s, 3s maybe, but it happens very rapidly. Having been a fire officer, you don't have a lot of time. Mike talked about being able to, where is that data? How do I get that data? Which data do I need? Don't have a lot of time for that because you're short-handed, and your goal is to that initial attack. And so that's one of the problems right there. And Mike touched on we deal with the connection piece, the pipe. But as these solutions become more advanced and more adopted, that helps the pipe. The pipe will evolve, and everybody, you build applications to be able to run down cellular data nowadays, and so that's a big piece of it too. So just my 2 cents.
So since we're popcorning around, like a solution to think about in this space is it's a logical extension of Mike's thought and Billy's too, is that if the model right now is that when we have an incident that evolves to major status type 2, type 1, then it begins to get special resources, cows and colts, things that come. Then the obvious question is, well, the network needs to be there to begin with. And that's a benefit, I think, that it's worth highlighting here as a model for us solving a number of these kinds of problems, not just this one. And that is, well, what do we take to every call? Who's at every call? They have mobile devices, they have big red trucks, they have wildland engines. So we have nodes in a potential network or things that could be equipped. Some of it's now, some of it could be in the future. And one way that we haven't thought about addressing it, at least I don't hear a ton of talk about it, is we can bake FirstNet into fleets, at the OEM level. Boise Mobile equipment with type 3 engines, type 1 engines. And so all of a sudden you're equipped to move data from any IoT device from the equipment, whether it's fire or law enforcement that's already going. And so we start to see the beginnings of these things like high-powered user equipment that can extend our range that's on that. But just as a baseline of having what I guess I would refer to as FirstNet ready fleets, or just call it whatever. That's a public safety broadband network that we've embraced. 18,000 plus departments have. So I would just say that's just an interesting thought, is don't try to react to a special circumstance, but we already have something that's going to every emergency. We're going to drive it there with personnel. We're going to have the potential to bring power and comms with us, and we're going to extend from that and daisy chain out to user devices that are in everybody's pocket. So we're building ad hoc networks all the time, and the smarter people on this call can figure out, that kind of model is, I would leave it with this. Like, we have seen the advent of like the compact rapid deployable CRDs, so that you have satellite backhaul, you have basically a soft band 14 tower, you have cellular connectivity where there was none. Is there a version of that that could be as standard equipment on a new fire engine that extends that network? So that's just a thought for the group, that we already have so many of these pieces in place, and then most of the rest of the interoperability that follows that, the data, the applications, the geospatial content, the evacuation modeling, processing at the edge, are all enabled by that network.
That's a great point, David. We don't respond to a fire and then order up fire hose and PPE and water. So just make it another tool that's automatically going to go out with us. That's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. We have all the component pieces. It's time to be utilizing them on a daily basis. I hear a lot of teams talk about disaster, big problem, innovation, and it's like, well, we'll lose 7,000 people again today in America, probably some in the wildland setting. We have a slow moving disaster in America every day. Let's fix it on a regular basis, and then harden it and make it more reliable in comms denied or comms minimized environments where we need the ad hoc tools. I want to get to, we saw Daniel was talking about fuel mitigation. I want to get to that. The other thing, going back to how do we manage the data? I recently came up with the analogy that we need a fusion center where all the data goes to me, a nationwide fusion center, pinging back and forth. But with so much data, as Sheila had said, that every day we have more data than we can possibly deal with. If I just look at my LinkedIn feed, it tells me that there's a lot going on. But we need to take the grunge band garage group equivalent and turn it into a symphony of data with a conductor that delivers the right data to the right person at the right time, civilian and first responder. So such great conversation on fuel reduction. Daniel, I'm calling you up and saying, yeah, I remember hearing that California had 90 million dead trees, and then, oh no, we're wrong, it's 120 million. Oh no, it's 140 million. So what is your fuel reduction forest management technology you have, sir?
Hey, hi Kirk, thanks for the intro. So I'm Dan Enlow with Wildfire Alliance, and what we are working with along with conventional fire retardants, we've added a new set of ingredients that can be either used separately with them or in conjunction with them, that uses composting techniques. And so we call it compost acceleration fuel reduction technology. It's primarily targeted at the DUF. We're at the phase where we're doing demonstrations. We got lab pictures. We've actually got a grant application into CAL FIRE. I'm working with University of Wisconsin Oshkosh as our research partner, as they are the foremost researchers on biodegrading things and measuring it. There's not a lot of standards and I don't know, hard science on there. So I worked for Intel for 31 years and the Navy for 34 years, and mix of reserve and active. So I'm really used to, hard data and Admiral Rickover's, follow your indicators kind of stuff. Well, what we've got with this fuel reduction technology is the ability to put down a starter kit of saprophytic fungus and bacteria that will eat the dead material on the ground. And interestingly, it looks like we've even cracked one of the big rocks is how to get it to go on pine needles. Is if you talk to the gardening crowd, those aren't the favorite materials to compost. They're kind of difficult, but we're actually even having some success there. And so what we have is essentially solutions that you can put out. Our retardant plus fuel reduction stuff is food grade phosphates, non-toxic materials. Our standalone fuel reducer is all organic. And you put it down, and literally within 2 weeks, you can start to see the physical decomposition of the duff. So our product stuff is all patent pending. We did a preliminary patent last year. We filed our final a couple of months ago, and so it's a patent pending product, and we're out there looking for demonstration partners and fire department partners and things like that. So we think we can really offer a solution to that really highly flammable duff that can be used in conjunction with prescribed burns, or in some cases even instead. But it doesn't, of course, trim the trees, right? But for example, if you do a mechanical thinning operation right now, you have the choice of leaving that fuel in the forest to slowly decay over a number of years, or hauling it away in trucks. So now we've got an alternative method there that's actually good for the forest to compost it quickly and into beneficial things for your trees. So that's my quick and dirty on compost acceleration fuel reduction technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. There's a third way we can burn the slash pile after we remove the physical tree and contribute to the carbon footprint that apparently is causing some of our consternation that brings us to this call today. I just looked up, Safra, what you said, and it's just super inspiring that every day I learn something new, because I've been a gardener on and off for 35 years, so I've run a few dozen compost bins. So thank you. To think that we could use that, and conceptually, right? Peat fires, duff fires are some of the most cow pie fires, some of the most miserable things to deal with. If we could digest it down to some mineral earth, yay. Maybe the worms and nematodes and other bioorganisms would be happy early in the process and learning. I'm sure anybody else who actually knows more about the forest floor than I do want to chat on this.
Yeah, Kirk, this is Anthony again. The discussion beforehand, pre-fire is super important, but I think paying attention to what happens post-fire is also going to inform where we direct efforts throughout the rest of that cycle. And what I mean by that, I had the privilege of interacting with a bunch of our different users, Esri users at our recent user conference. And I had asked our entire operations center, I said, raise your hand if anyone in the room has measured the efficacy of the fuels treatment. And I just kind of got blank looks. Everyone looked at me and it's like, well, how do you even do that? What does that mean? What does that look like? How do you measure the efficacy of where we're spending this cash?
No standards.
And there's no
it's
standard.
Just amazing. All, right? Yeah, it just absolutely. Yeah. When I got reeled into helping in this job, I sort of expected when I'd go on the internet, I'd find things to measure and hard science on here. No, I'm having to make it.
Yes, exactly. And what you're seeing on the screen here, Mike Cox is gracious enough to pull it up, is a swipe map that we built to kind of get at that, right? So what we had was a customer story at the BLM actually going out on the landscape, conducting these hazardous fuels reduction treatments. But they were lucky enough, or unlucky enough rather, to have a fire impact those treatments. And what you're looking at is a burn severity map. And so how they started chipping away at that question was they're saying, okay, look, if the goal of these treatments are to protect communities, other infrastructure, you should see a reduction in fire intensity as that fire impacts those treatments. And so that's exactly what they saw, right? They measured burn intensity with imagery post-fire, and they were able to prove the hard science, the proof in the pudding, as it were, hand it back to the folks giving them the cash, Congress, and say, hey, look, these fuels treatments had a direct and immediate measurable impact on where we're reducing fire risk on the landscape, and there's a high likelihood that because of them that we were able to save X amount of structures in Goose Creek was the town. But it's kind of an interesting use case, and the first one I've seen where you're actually starting to be able to quantify how effective you're being on the landscape.
That's great.
Anthony, is this map public? Can I share it with the group, or is it not shared?
I don't think it's shared publicly just yet, but we can get on that. I'll make a note and we'll try to get it public facing so folks can take a look at it themselves.
So certainly if anybody wants any more information, can certainly reach out to me or Anthony to help you with that.
Thanks, Mike and Anthony. You know, again, these conversations can go 100 which ways, and already, again, just remembering, keep putting stuff in the chat. Emily, who's here, she's kind of helping document and scribe everything. So all relevant notes and all relevant links will be provided to the group document after. So keep it all rolling. This is exactly what these forums are for. I want to now kind of like continue to popcorn it. You know, I see D Manson. I don't know if we've ever met, and I'm sorry I don't know your first name, or Dave, but would love to know if you want to introduce yourself, maybe give a little 2 cents on who you are and what are your kind of your thoughts and perspectives on this whole conversation around wildfire technology.
Gotcha. Oh, geez. Hello, I'm Dave Manson, retired fire captain from Cal Fire. I did 16 years on Copter 106 as a helitat captain, 34-year career, 34 fire seasons. Now working with the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. And I'm just kind of here to learn what is going on, because one thing, like you said early on, just trying to keep up with the technology is, you know, good luck. So I kind of used to hate the technology out there, because what I found is a lot of division groups were stuck staring at their screens rather than engaging in the firefight sometimes, but ride the wave or get tossed under, as I found out in aviation, and learn to love Avenza. Learned to love some of the ArcGIS, though it was extremely intimidating to me. And now the UAS, the unmanned aerial systems, are somewhat of a hazard, but it's such a tool that I feel could be used. It's just trying to figure out how to use them in the fire traffic area on an initial dispatch when aircraft is coming and you have your stack of helicopters, tankers, air attack. We can't just have something flying around out there willy-nilly. And you are seeing them on the ICS 220s on larger incidents, but that's a few days in. And so I've done some evacuation route work. I've done plenty of fuels treatment work in the off season, back when we used to have off seasons of fire season here in California. And it's kind of a passion of mine, and we got a lot of work to do in catching up with fuels treatment, you know, vegetation management. And so I am really kind of blown away at what I've heard already. I'm behind the times here, and I'm going to try and catch up with everything that I'm hearing here. I've got a lot of brilliant minds on this forum here. Kudos to you guys. And so I just want to catch up with some of these links on these chats afterward, and try and catch up to where everybody's at here. Like I said, I just kind of I'm tuning in to see what's being said. So I don't know that I'm much help here right now, but that's it.
Oh, right on, Dave. That's
Okay.
exactly what this is for. So again, all these notes and documents are actively being created right now into a Google Doc that will be shared. But I think even one thing you just said of how maybe you were reluctant to tech because maybe we're out there in the field just with the phone to my face and not looking at the fire. But I think that's an interesting topic about how are we using tech to make our lives easier, better, safer, more effective. Tech is supposed to make our life better. We shouldn't be having to go backwards and need to do X, Y, and Z and do double work. And so that to me is always an interesting concept around tech within the public safety sector. So we're kind of interested in how we are truly using tech to make our lives better. Kirk, I see your hand is raised. If you want to give a kind of a 2 cents on that.
Yes, and I also thought, David, did you have something you wanted to say to Mr. Manson?
I just wanted to thank him for 34 years at Cal Fire and his service.
Yeah, 34 years in the dirt. Thank you for that. You know what watch your dime means, and the aerial side of the house. I did send you a link on, or I put in the chat there on flying cars. I mean, they're here. So how are we as an industry and the veteran operators, and to be fair, I hated technology too. Anything plastic, anything electric. No, I was all manual, all my woodworking and everything, all manual. Well, but we could save a life with it. So now I'm a fan of the outcome of the tech. Say hi to Seth over there at the Fire Safe group. And I'm going to share one thing because
Will, he's the one that sent me the link.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So how do we get off of the device? Well, to me, it's going to be in front of our eye. So I'll put this in the chat here, and Blankenship, I don't know how close you are working with Dave Van B on this, but Western Fire was part of a group that tied for first place with Janus Research on, well, let me go ahead and just go to their website on augmented reality, that it's going to be over our eye. So rather than looking down, it's going to be part of the digital world is Web 3.0, Industry 4.0. It's going to be in front of us as a digital and twin enhanced digital terrain map. So as an airborne firefighter, when you looked down, if you were in the pilot seat, you would see your flight map, bungee corded to your leg. Well, the F-35 jet fighters, they just see out the bottom of the plane. They don't see themselves or the plane at all. They see the video feed from the bottom. And we're going to do that with digital twins and so on. So here's a link on that. So to your point, yes, the drones and the technology is concurrently a challenge in the way and an opportunity that we're all explorers on. And thank you for everybody for being on the call to help us explore these ideas. This is the point.
I wanted to say one other thing, that the last few years, we would have anything from these smart kids at these local high schools coming up with projects, trying to come up with ways to interact their drones into the firefighting force, and other Bay Area companies. These people are passionate about it, and they're really trying to come up with something. There's a lot of people, as you guys know, working hard on this stuff, and it's not going away. It's here, but it's not. We haven't figured out how to make, on the initial attack, day 3 of the incident's different, but on the initial attack, how to make this work. So I just wanted to say that about how often I would have. It would be maybe 1-2 times a month, we'd have people want to come and ask us questions about how they can do this or how they can make it work. And unfortunately, because of our policy and just life safety, we would say, look, don't do that yet. Like, that's a great idea, but hang on, so that's it.
Thank you. Just again, this is really what this is all for. So I want to continue to give everyone the chance. We have 15 minutes left. Some people maybe are just passively listening, which is okay. But see, Mike, your camera came on, it's great. I see Jay Watson. I'm not sure if I think you might have been on this last call, but Mike, your camera's off. Your mic is live. You're hot. What's top of mind for Mike, and give us some context on what your take on everything.
Yeah, and so I just want to give a couple minor updates and just see, obviously there's a pretty impressive think tank sitting here. So any input, or support I could get, or ideas. And Kevin, thank you again, and Darley for putting all these together and the continued work you do to keep the fire service community together. But so we're working on 2 or 3 things I just wanted this group to be aware of. The first, evacuations. Obviously, we started the conversation with that, and so Professor Zhao, I'm very interested in the work you're doing in Florida, and we're working with the IFC's Wildland Committee on an evacuation application for localities. So, not your necessarily federal resources, but those localities in the WUI that may not have the resources that a metro-sized or large locality would have. So, the model right now is kind of going towards a know your zone, almost similar to what we do for hurricanes and those kind of evacuations. But it would be focused at a county or census block level, or census tract really level, and provide that not dynamic evacuation based on real time, which is obviously the next phase or kind of the holy grail of what we're looking for. But again, Professor Zhao already reached out to Chief Doolin at the IFC and given him your name and sent the link. So you might hear something from the International Fire Chiefs just as a follow-up there. So, but there is some work going on evacuations, and the IFC wants to be able to provide that, to their member agencies as a service. So be interested to see how that kind of expands. We're starting to do some great work with FEMA and USFA and Dr. Moore. As many know, the U.S. Fire Administrator is pretty engaged, but particularly since FEMA has started publishing the USA structures layer and the added analytic capability that provides us to have a layer of structures for the entire country. So we're working with Chris Vaughn and his shop to expand that beyond just 2D building footprints to have a national layer of 3D models that includes occupancy type, which for risk assessments or post-event disaster assessments would be huge and literally have a 3D model of the entire country. So that is actually part of what's focused at Wildland too, for those risk assessments and for the damage assessments post-disaster. And then finally, pretty unique, and Kirk, I know you're aware of this. We were working with Mike Varney, or talking with Mike Varney about coordinating some of the connectivity for this project, but we've gotten an Amazon Snowball, which as many of you know is the internet in a box. And so we've gotten one that's large enough or larger than we need to put our entire ecosystem on it. And it's about 2.5 feet by a foot tall by a foot wide. I mean, it's just a box. So it's similar to what you'd put in a skiff or data appliance you put in a skiff or something like that. But we were going to put our entire ecosystem on that and then go out to a very remote location, some hilltop in West Virginia somewhere, including FirstNet and some agencies. So probably the first test of this will be USAR, because they're pretty embedded with some workflows in GIS. But actually go out for an exercise 3 or 4 days and test in completely disconnected environments the ability to bring that GIS platform with them as they respond. And much like what we were talking about earlier with FirstNet capabilities, add that kind of snowball capability, that disconnected device capability to that first out equipment list, to the minimum equipment list. And that's the intent of USAR, is the FEMA teams would have that as part of their cache. So we're pretty excited about that. So those are just kind of 3 updates from the Esri side. Those that I've never met, I'm Mike Cox. I'm the director of fire and EMS for Esri. I'm on the same team as Anthony. He's wildland focused, and I've pretty much got all the structural USAR and those kind of activities. But anyway, thanks again, Kevin, for having us all get together like this. It's great.
Mike, thank you as always. And yeah, I recommend anyone, if you aren't familiar with Esri, maybe you've been living under a rock, but it's an amazing company. Mike, I actually just listened to our podcast the other day and talking about the CEO of Esri, Jack Dangerman, just amazing human that has done a lot of good to kind of use GIS to change the world. So strongly encourage you to check that out. So just kind of continue to popcorn. Anyone want to build off what Mike just talked about in terms of how we are taking all these different models and extrapolating them and providing them real time within a actual interface that can be used by first responders in the field. Anyone want to build on that, or anything else? I'm kind of looking at Jay Watson, Emil, Paul Logan, Peter Darley, anyone else that hasn't said, or Denise. All right, Emil, I'm going to go to you with your hand raised. Floor is yours. What do you got?
All right. Good day, everyone. My name is Emil Stevens. I'm from XVR. Yeah, so we are more in the French side of firefighting, especially in training firefighters and incident commanders, being prepared for when the bells ring. And what we have developed is a virtual training simulator. And together with our clients, we have developed last year a 3D model, a digital twin of an area in Australia. And I can show you a video of that just to give you an idea what we can do there. Let me launch that. Let's see if I can show the screen. Right, there we go. So probably you can see my screen right now, I guess. In a small video. Right, so this is the 3D model we have developed together.
Emil, it says you started sharing, but I'm not seeing anything.
You can't see it.
That.
That's interesting. And I can't stop sharing.
Maybe just try stopping it, and then maybe make sure you click it again.
Let me see. Stop share. All right.
Take two.
Take two. All right. Sorry for this.
Oh, you're good.
Right. Can you see my screen now?
Can anyone else see it? I'm still just seeing Emil Stevenson started sharing.
Negative.
same
Yeah, same thing.
Negative.
Yeah, still
Right.
loading.
That's really unfortunate. All right, let's try to swap over to my second screen. That might maybe help. All right. Anyways, I will keep it short. So what we have done there, and I will stop sharing. I just explained. So we have created a 3D model of that area, and with that, they're able to train their tactics in there. So pre-planning, discussing together, have tabletop option, team training there, and all about showing the effects. So on top of that, we have made a calculation on spreading models, how a fire will be spread, depending on moisture, depending on weather effects, depending on tactics that they are applying in there. So when they're doing water drop or anything like that, what the effect will be for the wildfire to spreading in the model. And that can be visualized in that 3D world and train them and being prepared on the actual effect. Great opportunity for them also to see, hey, what's the impact on the community? Where do we have traffic jams, crowd control, and everything would come in there in place as well. So just small thing, what we're working on.
Thank you for speaking up. I've been following and enjoying the work at XVR for a long time, and as immersive learning as a whole platform for our first responders in the wildland setting, with your product, with Flame Systems, River Reality and Virtual Reality. I'm gonna give a heads up about, put a quick thing here, and David, I want to do something with Western after a fashion, if you will, on our, have you got my Eye in the Fire site here, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where credit to Dr. Matt Howler at the NIST Fire Lab, where they went out and conducted some fires in 360 video. And Kevin, we should push out the survey monkey application for nonprofits to get cameras from GoPro, who have been a partner with me in the past. So Dr. Hallard put the team out in the forest, put a camera inside a water-cooled lens, and here we are inside the fire in 360 degrees. It's a great opportunity for first responders to learn, and for citizens to learn. And so I say to Western, to the international, to anybody who's in the wildfire setting, boy, we need to do more of this. If we're going to do a prescribed burn, it damn well ought to be captured in 360 videos so we can go back to it. And for people who've never been in the wildfire setting, that they can get a sense of it. He's done even a really nice job where he's written the code or has an API where if you have the capability to have thermal data from these from your test burns, then that can be embedded so you can be there in VR and to see what the thermal output was. So synthetic digital environments and then 360 video content. There's so much learning for the wildland setting. Everyone from the stakeholders in the communities, the first responders, and frankly, the elected officials in Congress. Congress, I would imagine for most of them, they don't know what watch your dime means. And for those who haven't been swinging a Pulaski or McLeod or something, other, digging tool in the dirt, which is primarily how we deal with wildfires, is make sure you have 10 feet between your fellow firefighter. Otherwise, somebody might get struck with one of these tools that should be nearly razor sharp, and they need to be sharp, not quite razor, but sharp enough to get some work done.
Hey, Kirk, I wanted to now just kind of like, I think we're almost hitting the top of the hour. I don't want to get too much longer, but just kind of anyone else get kind of like a 30, 60-second kind of something that you hadn't mentioned yet. I know Denise and Jay Watson, did either of you two, or Paul Logan, did any of you three want to give just like a quick 30, 60 seconds on sort of top of mind for you or anything you wanted to share with you here? Paul, so you're off mute. If you want to just give us a quick little what's going on in your head? I can't really hear you. All right, Paul, we're gonna, Denise or Jay Watson, if you wanted to give any kind of little context. Paul's audio is not working. And if not, Denise and Jay Watson, that's fine. All right, Denise, your camera is on. Denise, quick introduction. Who are you? What's going on? And we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Denise from Squishy Robotics. We're developing drone deployable sensors, and thinking about what type of data makes sense for informed decision making in these types of responses. Joined here today just for the learning aspect, but I think what really resonated with me is just the different vast topics that were discussed, from actual technology to the things that need to be implemented for that technology to be successfully picked up and incorporated into workflows, from data privacy to, I think it was Dave that mentioned the use of drones and needing to understand how those drones are going to work with the other aerial assets that are already in the air and that kind of stuff. So just kind of really appreciated the systems view of this discussion, of thinking about anything that gets incorporated into existing workflows has many different layers that need to be worked out and discussed. So just appreciated the opportunity as always. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Kirk. Just all around great discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Denise. Really appreciate that. Peter or Jay Watson, so we get two Peters. I'm not sure if there's another one. Peter, you're off mute there.
Yeah, just thank you, everybody. Learning a lot, great thoughts, and well done, and thanks again.
Good. Thanks, Peter. Jay Watson, any kind of thoughts or feedback from you?
I'm from like a little town in the East Coast, South Carolina, in Greenville. We have very few wildfire, but I wanted to sit in on this because we have been called on occasion. But what we do is very limited. Now I was just trying to listen in to see what I could learn to take back to our department. I appreciate all the information, and I'm trying to get all these links in.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, and that just kind of shows there's a wide difference from north, south, east, west, just here in America, but even around the world, where we have slightly different geographies and topographies, but still a lot of the problems and solutions are the same. So if you did not get the auto kind of email from me locked in the calendar, that means I don't have your email. So send that to me, and I'll do a post email recap sometime by the end of this week or early next week with the updated Google document that has all the links. And we're doing a different topic every month. So we did smart apparatus first, wildfire technology this month. What to do next month? Don't know. Could do wildfire again for all we know. But if you have ideas, please message me directly. And just kind of from Darley, Smart Firefighting, myself, Captain Kirk, just want to thank you all for being here. This is really what is important, just getting people together and sharing ideas and best practices. So I want to thank you again for your time. And I guess I'll leave it to anyone out of a final mic drop or something they want to pass to the community now, or for those listening later.
Thanks so much, Kevin, and everybody for being here. A lot of great talent. Good to be in the same virtual room together.
Thank you all. Well, until next
Thank you,
time,
everyone.
email from me. Have a good day.